I was enthralled to learn that Father Martin became intimately aware of some of Aquino's psychological training experiments because they had gone awry and essentially made some military men, I don't know what, fully possessed at Fort Bragg. Tell us about this.
Yes, sure. Malachi received a call from an aide to who at the time was Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney. It was not long after the end of Desert Storm, the first Gulf War, 1991, requesting that he come down to a meeting at the Pentagon for a consultation. And by this time, Malachi was in his early 70s. He didn't like to travel alone. So he called me up and said, I have to go down to Washington on the train on such and such a date. Would you like to come with me for the day and be my traveling companion? And I thought to myself, let's see, taking a vacation day and spending the whole day with Malachi. Let's see how long that takes me to make up my mind. So we ended up taking the earliest Metroliner out of Penn Station in New York down to Washington, D.C. It took about 2 hours and 50 minutes. Got down there, and then we got on the Washington Metro. We got off at the Pentagon, the underground Pentagon Metro station. We announced ourselves at the visitor gate, and we were escorted through into one of the inner rings, what they call, of the Pentagon. And it was in an underground conference room. And there were several officers there, high-ranking officers, colonels, lieutenant colonels. There may have been one or two brigadier generals. He was introduced as Dr. Martin, and I made very clear that I was there as a civilian friend of Father Martin. I was not there in any capacity as an active employee of the CIA. I was just Father Martin's traveling companion and friend. And what happened was Malachi said, well, this is very interesting, why you've brought me down here, but do you want to tell me about it? And they said, well, instead of telling you about it, perhaps we had just better get things underway. You can see for yourself. And this young woman in BDU's battle dress uniform, she was brought into the conference room, and she was accompanied by, if I remember correctly, 3 or 4 very large military police officers. And she didn't look like she could hurt a fly, maybe, 5'7", 130, 140 pounds, maybe. And, she was introduced to Malachi as, this is Dr. Martin. I was what I call the kids table, sitting against the wall. I was not up in the main conference table.
Right.
And they said, why don't we just start the demonstrations for Dr. Martin's benefit? And the first demonstration, she was told, you will demonstrate extreme, I believe it was extreme weight. And she closed her eyes, and the doctor counted back from 15 or 10. And when she opened her eyes, these military police officers, they tried to lift her up. And they were not faking when the 3 of them could not budge her off the floor. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, she looked like the size of like a college student, right? And then one of these civilians said, all right, Carol, that's enough. Close your eyes. I'm going to count backwards from 10. When you open it, you open your eyes, the demonstration will be concluded. He counted down, she opened her eyes, and they were able to, easily, one guy was able to easily pick her up in the air, like throwing around a college cheerleader. And then they said, all right, for the second demonstration, we're going to demonstrate immobility. Same protocol was followed. She closed her eyes. She opens them when the doctor, or whoever this guy was, I assume he was a psychiatrist or something, he reached 0. She opens her eyes, and at a nod from this Pentagon civilian, the MPs, they bum rush her. They tried to tackle her. And literally, it was like watching full-grown men trying to tackle a telephone pole. They bounced off of her like they were trying to tackle a telephone pole. It was the damnedest thing I've ever seen. I'm surprised they didn't hurt themselves. And when the demonstration was over, they tugged her back and forth like a playful tug of war, but to demonstrate that, yeah, they could move her then. And then finally, and the thing that really kind of wigged me out was they had a butcher block. I don't know if it was oak or whatever, but it was like a butcher block measuring about 2 feet by 2 feet by about 2 inches thick. And it was sitting on the conference table. And they said to her, all right, now you're going to demonstrate extreme digital penetration without physical harm. And I remember she had French manicured nails. And she took her hand and she placed it on top of the butcher block like this, with her nails facing down. All right. And they counted down. And over the period of about 3 minutes, she stood pushing her fingers against this butcher block until she was told to stop and withdraw her hand. And then they ended the demonstration. And in the butcher block was the imprint of her fingers in the wood to a depth of maybe half to 2/3 of an inch. I don't remember exactly how deep. She definitely made an imprint with her fingertips in this hardwood. And at that point, she was dismissed, and they escorted her out of the room. And they asked Malachi, they said, "What do you think about this?" And he wasn't going to show his cards. He just said, "I find it fascinating. I find it very interesting." And then they showed him the binders, and they said, "These are the training materials that the soldiers were having problems with, are using." And Malachi said, "Soldiers like Carol." And they said, "Yes." And Malachi said, "Well, what kind of acting out are they doing?" And they said, "Well, in the middle of the night, 2:30, 3:30 in the morning, she has been known on occasion to fly into an unaccountable rage, pick up a fellow airborne soldier, and throw him across the room, leaving the imprint of his body in the wallboard when he hits the wall." And Malachi's eyes they got a little bit narrower, and he started paging through. And he took about 15, 20 minutes to go through these binders. And they were binders of the psychological warfare program that had been developed, this mind war, by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino. And he surprised me because I thought he was not going to fudge it, but I thought he was going to use clinical terms to describe possession and exorcism. And he didn't. It surprised me. He said, "Gentlemen, it is my professional belief that this young lady is the subject of severe demonic possession, and my only recommendation to treat her would be a full Roman exorcism."